Xavier, thank you so much, and George for helping me set up this equipment. Shout out to Drew for letting us borrow the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going on? How's your day? How's work?
Work's good.
Yeah.
Life's good. Yeah, I'm ready just to unwind and talk with you today, Lise.
I know. Thank you. I appreciate it.
How's your day going?
It's going. It's been quite a day. It's been some tea spilling today.
Mm-hmm. We're always around for good tea.
Went to a graduation party today.
Nice.
It was nice. Got to reconnect with some friends, and what else happened? Took a nap, and I went for a grocery run for Janet earlier today.
Because Janet was supposed to go to Food City yesterday and buy all her essentials.
Mm-hmm.
But she still needed you to go get some for some reason. It is a mystery to me, I guess.
Right. Her unit at the hospital she works at, they were going to make elote.
Mm.
And she had to get a few more ingredients. And I'm like, Janet, night before, didn't you go for a run the night before for those things? What's up with that?
Yeah.
But no, she sent me.
Just to do her dirty work.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, enough of that. What's something fun that happened today at work?
Something fun that happened. I got to go have lunch with you. That was fun.
Oh yeah.
I always do that every day. I take very long lunch breaks.
Mm-hmm. He's cutting time.
I'm cutting time, and I go to Lucy's house every day for lunch.
Yep. What do we have? Oh, chili pepper. So today, I actually had an interview today at Home Depot, and I was patiently waiting, for the managers. I know they're busy, so I was having a seat there, the corner of their office, and I brought my little notebook just in case I needed to write any notes, after the interview. And in this little notebook, I carry like two of them around. This one fits small enough to fit in one of my purses. The other one, I carry it. It's a little bit bulkier. I can just, put it in a bigger bag. But I tend to carry this one around with me a little bit more because it's more compact. And I was skimming through the pages, and I couldn't help but, as I was waiting for the interview, I was skimming through the pages, something to do. I didn't want a manager walking by and like, oh, she's on her phone. Oh, that's how she's going to be at work, So I was just skimming through the pages and, making myself look, pensive and thoughtful. And
a little professional.
Yeah. And I couldn't help but read one of the quotes I had written back a few months, and let's see, kind of resonated with me in today's, what I'm going through, now. So I've been listening to a few podcasts lately, and one of them was Esther Perel. And if you guys don't know who Esther Perel is, she is a couples therapy psychologist, I would say. How would you put it?
Yeah, definitely. She's really a relationship expert. Like she's a couples therapist, and she's been doing it for years, and she has a whole lot of insight. That other, people go to her sort of as the last shot.
Mm-hmm. To kind of repair relationships or to gain insight from it. And in one of the episodes, I can't remember which one it was, but there was something she said that really resonated with me, and it was a quote from Viktor Frankl, and she explained that Viktor Frankl was this Auschwitz survivor back from the Holocaust, and he actually turned a psychologist and wrote a book called Meaningful. Let me look it up because I'm going to botch the name of the title. Man's Search for Meaning. And in that book, he had quoted, he has a really nice quote from that book, and it read, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, is the freedom to choose one's attitude in any set of circumstance, to choose one's own way. So I really liked that quote. I think a lot of us can relate to things being taken from us and things being taken from us, but ultimately, like, we have that autonomy in ourselves to choose the way we're going to act, or our attitude and how we perceive things. I don't know if you have any thoughts or on that quote or anything.
So what was the quote one more time?
Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the freedoms. Let me. Okay, here. I have the exact quote because I wrote it like chicken scratch on my little notebook. Because usually when I'm writing on this little notebook, I'm usually writing like on my knee or like, mid-air.
Just on something solid to get it down really quickly.
Yeah, right. I will tell you right now. The last of human freedoms, the ability to choose one's attitude in a given set of circumstances.
I like that. I think with that, it's really, so many things are already decided for you or that you're not in control of. And there are things that are coming at you, things people say, things people do, whether it's your school or your work environment. Like there's so many things that are just tossed at you every second of the day, but like your reaction to them, your mindset is like up to you. Like, yeah, we're going to have an initial reaction to maybe what we feel. That's human, that we all do, but it's how we're going to process it and how we're going to tackle it in those next couple seconds. Okay, I feel sad right now. How do I want to approach it? Or, gosh, that made me angry. Okay, how am I going to process next?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, no one can tell you how to feel or how to react with those things. Like, that is your freedom. That's your autonomy. It's like, okay, how am I going to respond to life in this moment?
Yes. And I'm just going to read the quote in full just in case. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. I really like it because, and I've talked to you about this before, but basically I have a lot of people around me or in my past who have been telling me like, oh, this isn't quite for you, or you might not be cut out for this, or you're just not ready. It's your time, and it could be in decisions where I personally just don't see fit. I'm just like, no, that's not for me. No, it's this, but the other person can kind of reverse it and be like, well, no, it's just because you're not ready. Like, they already kind of categorize me or put me in a as a label, like, it's like, nah, that's just because you're not ready, you're not suited for this and stuff. Well, it can just be straight up that I just don't want to, but yeah, they kind of take that freedom for you when you go ahead and decide that, when you're saying yourself, no, that's not my cup of tea, my forte, then the other person can be like, well, no, maybe it's just because you're not ready. Well, they're taking your freedom in that aspect, they're taking that freedom for you to choose your own attitude in a given circumstance. So that's one of the things that kind of gets me, because I think for you to become more self-aware and recognize things within yourself, you need to allow yourself to have those certain circumstances and situations. And if someone doesn't allow you to do that, how are you going to get any better at reacting with a better attitude in that circumstance, you know? But yeah, something that's, you know, impacted me lately is just old friends and new friends coming in and out of life. I don't know if you've
I can definitely relate to that.
I think we can both agree, you know, we've had people come and go. Mm-hmm. Some sad to come and go, some happy.
You know, it's a whole wide range of things, but you know, it happens.
It happens. It must be done, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we've had a fair share of people come in and out of our lives, and wish them nothing but the best, you know.
Mm-hmm. No, I'll pray for them, and I really do ultimately I want people to succeed, and sometimes, like relationships in general, and I think whether it's like a platonic friendship or romantic relationship, like sometimes things don't work out, and it's not easy at the moment, but it's like it does happen, and that's part of life. And it's really about how you want to approach it and tackle it. And you know, I like thinking back to what you were saying earlier about you know, people just deciding for you already. It's like, no, that you couldn't handle hearing that, or no, I don't think you'd be right for that job, or well, I just looking at you, or without even getting to give you the chance, mm-hmm. or to even risk it yourself. Well, no, I'm a human. Can't I decide for myself? Isn't that if the only thing we've got? We have our freedom to like decide on things. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, I think there's definitely not even just scenarios of like whether it be in academics or school at work. It's even comes down, and this is tying back to the idea of friends, where it's even sometimes friends who will put you in these labels or these boxes and saying, no, you wouldn't want to come do this activity with us. That's not what you would do. Mm-hmm. Or no, I couldn't say this. It's like, it's not part of your sense of humor. You wouldn't get it. Mm-hmm. But it's like, well, no, if we're friends, we can talk. You can tell me it's okay.
It's clearly okay. There's no rule book. When you become a parent, there's literally no book to tell you this is what you need to do. There's some out there, but a parent can literally read that book and that still won't be enough. They'll still be like, I don't know what the hell we're doing with this kid, you know? Mm. It's by God's grace that they turned out okay.
We're lucky we're even alive right now, right? And that we're sitting here. No, there's no rule book to life. That's going to help you perfectly navigate everything. Like whether it comes being a parent, being a teenager, being a young adult, you know, we're all trying to figure it out at different paces in our life. And, it's hard. It's not easy. I'm like, it's a struggle for all of us to try to figure out these different phases in our life. And some days it's like, oh, hey, we're nailing it. We're coming across just fine. And then so you'll look back and like, man, was that year so rough for me. And we're all just trying to figure it out as best we can. No one knows what they're doing.
No. Just like relationships, there's no rule book to that, you know?
It's not like, oh, if we don't emulate what's in this romance novel, if we don't emulate what's in this movie, then our relationship didn't fall out, you know? It's like, no, this standard's non-existent, you know? It's like there's this great quote by the late Joan Rivers that I really do like, and it actually speaks about relationships, and it goes, the only people who really knows what goes on in a relationship are the two people that are in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll extrapolate it out and kind of break down what that's saying. What it means is that, like, there's so many preconceived notions and these imaginary standards of what, you know, a relationship should fall into and what we need to do or say for it to be legitimate. And what really she's saying is you can make those rules for you, you know, instead of like, oh, well, this couple always goes out every Saturday night. You know, maybe you guys go get lunch every Wednesday instead. That's your thing because it's your schedules and how it works. It's like you don't have to try to keep up with all these things. It's like, no, you can sit there and define it and what works with you, you know. Mm-hmm. And it's a shame that there's some people who like, oh no, we got to do this or say this, and it's just make sure we put this post on Instagram in time and everyone sees it. And let's go to my parents, but let's go to your friends and we do this and this, and it's too much to try to do all that.
But no, like, yeah, that book doesn't exist. I find it more than once. I have a few people come up to me and tell me, you know, I don't know if this is a red flag or if this is something that we just need to work on. And I think that's, like, people aren't alone in that. I think a lot of people can relate to that, and just it's hard to decipher which one is it. Is it a no, or is it it's something we need to work on, you know? To what extent, at what point do I need to, you know, say stop, or, you know, reevaluate, like, maybe this person isn't right for me. Maybe this situation isn't right. It's making us miserable, you know, or it's like, no, this is just a hurdle on the road. You know, we're going to work through it and kind of persevere on, you know. Mm-hmm. So I find a lot of people kind of struggle with that and kind of battling with that in their heads. Basically, I don't know if you've gotten, I mean, we're both Catholic, but have you ever had, like, a situation where it's like tit for tat? You know that verse in the Bible where it's like, basically, get that beam out of your brother's eye, you know. Mm-hmm. Like, don't be judgmental. Mm-hmm. That's the basis of it. Don't be judgmental. Don't be a hypocrite. That's the underlying message from that verse. Mm-hmm. But it's almost like tit for tat. Don't be saying stuff if you yourself aren't living out a certain way of life, you know. Mm-hmm. If you're scrutinizing or being prejudiced against someone's decisions in life, I mean, have a hard look at yourself. That's what basically this verse is saying. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a touchy subject, especially with someone being Catholic, because we're all trying to be good people in the end. And but we're not perfect. That's the issue. And it's almost like there's a Fulton Sheen, Blessed Fulton Sheen, if you guys don't know who that is. I was listening to one of his recordings. He's on Apple Podcasts on there, and it's from a series of lectures he's done back in the, I want to say 60s, 70s, around there. Anyways, he was talking about love, how God is only love. God is the only thing that's love. Humans are lovable, but we're not love. And that almost goes to show, it's like, we're not perfect. The only person perfect is God. And the essence of God, you know, like, kind of aspiring to live out that way of life, you know, good, humble way of life. And basically we're not we're lovable, but we're not ever going to be love. This complete whole thing. We're just parts. He in his lecture, he was saying how basically the only thing whole is God. We're just fractions. We're just fractions of this big part, you know, and we're not perfect. And I was talking to George about it earlier. It's like, 'cause he had asked me, what do you think about this certain situation? So basically, I'll explain to you guys the situation. We have a mutual friend, a mutual acquaintance, and they're going on a trip. They shouldn't be going on a trip. It's Rona, you know, Rona season.
It's dangerous out there.
Yeah. But this person has decided to go on a trip, and everyone has free will, and everyone has their choices and their own freedom to decide, like we mentioned before. And this person, you know, chose to go on this trip. My brother doesn't see eye to eye with that. My brother sees some I think ulterior motives is a good way about saying it. This person has ulterior motives for going on this trip, but this person, we haven't talked to this person in fairness too, to get kind of their side of the story, but like why they want to go on this trip. And ultimately I said, you know what, I give them the benefit of the doubt. If they want to go on this trip, go ahead. I mean, we're trying not to spread disease out there, and we're trying to do good and, you know, not cause harm. So let's, you know, if you wanna go, you ultimately have that last say, and you go, Glen Coco. You know, you go, Glen Coco. And my brother was just like, no, like this is wrong. You know, they're gonna spread the Rona. You know, they're gonna cause havoc in the world. You know, and he almost said, I want this person to prove me wrong, that they are going on this trip for a good reason. They're not just gonna go and, oh, let me just go for the heck of leaving and potentially, like, you know, spreading the Rona, you know? Yeah. Like, no, I want to make sure this is legit. There's a legitimate reason, not just for the, on a whim, I'm gonna go travel today. Right. And so yeah, we were talking about that, and I'm like, and I told him, I was like, you know, that's kind of like tit for tat. It's like that's a hard thing about, you know, living a Christian life, where it's like you're preaching one way, or you're putting out something, but then you're living out something else. You're not quite, the motives that or your intentions are not quite there. And that's something that we were talking about, tit for tat, where it's like, at what point do you call someone out on it, you know, to what extent, you know, or do you just, like, you know, shut up? What do you do, you know? But yeah, we just left it at, we'll see. You know, this person has a decision, has their own free will. You know, we'll just leave it at that. You know, we'll see what's to come of that. I mean, ultimately, I think we wish them the best on their trip. You know, but we'll see. Going to force or impose things on people. You know, and I think that's a good point that you had brought up. You know, this doesn't seem like you, so it seems a little bit off to me. That I think some people are so used to just like someone seeing their characteristics, like, oh, like, I always see you go to mass at this time, you typically go to lunch for this, you have this, and you like to read, you know, this, and you like to watch, you know, this television program, you know, like, there's like, oh, I know your routine, I know you. But when someone steps outside of your comfort zone, not that person's, but yours, it's like, what? You decided to
go out to dinner instead of cooking at home. That's so not you. What's different? It's like, no, it's like you're just, there's other facets to a person that we're not like privy to. Mm-hmm. And I think people don't like change. People don't like things that are unfamiliar. So when, like, let's say when it's a friendship between two people and suddenly someone is doing something different outside the norm, it freaks the other person out. It's like, no, you're my comfort zone. Like, you don't change. Everything else changes, but I need you to stay the same. And that's why they're so, like, you're quick to hear things like, no, you I don't think that would work for you. I don't think you should try that. Mm-hmm. But you really have to put yourself in the reverse. If you've ever been the person, to say those things, it's like, well, I'm sure you wouldn't want someone to tell you you can't do something, Mm-hmm. Even if it's something new or outside maybe your comfort zone, you would want support and say, hey, here's a new challenge I'm going to approach. I just need you to help me, that I want to take this risk and do this new thing. Because no one should be placed in a box or labeled a certain way. That's not very healthy for growth. Because, ultimately, like, everyone's supposed to strive for sainthood. And, we have to grow that way. And sometimes that means, like, we're going to be a little different at moments. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean it's negative. That change can be good. But it's just like, yeah, people need to kind of get comfortable with change.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And something that's been weighing on my heart for a bit, something recent that happened, probably like a week. And basically, you've known this story, but I'll tell it anyway. So I've lived in here my whole life, gone to school here, and made some beautiful memories with beautiful people. And there's people, I don't know if, audience can relate. You have some OGs in your life. You have some people that they've been there since day one. You've gone to elementary school. You guys grown up together, and you've guys seen each other grow, cry, fight, have kids, get married. Lately, we're the only ones that don't have kids or not married or anything. Everyone else pretty much, boot up. Mm-hmm. But going back, so yeah, you have some friends that you've had for a while, and you consider almost like they're always going to be there. They're always, you kind of also kind of put them in this pocket of yours, and you're like, these are the people that have known my roots, my origin story, and so I try and do my best to reconnect with people, to reach out any which way I can, if it's a text, message through Snapchat, DM through Instagram, I'll do it. I'll put myself out there for that, and whether it's reciprocated or not, people can be going through their own things, and I'm aware of that, so if they don't respond, that's okay. I don't take it to heart. I do. I do take it to heart, but I don't let them know that I take it to heart. Mm-hmm. So recently I had reconnected with one of my friends, and this person had an event going on and let me know, hey, I'll let you know about the details, So I'm like, cool. And obviously with this whole Rona thing going on, this COVID-19 stuff, it's just put everyone on a whim and everything up in the air, Nothing's kind of set in stone. And so I understood that. Well, come to find out, like few weeks now, this being last week, I see some Snapchats, some Instagram stories going around, and I see that little get together happening, and I didn't get a text, I didn't get an invite, which is it's fine, but it was just really heartbreaking to see and kind of like absorb and register, you try and keep on a straight face. And it did hurt because, I mean, this is someone who I considered a friend, who I still do. But an OG, the OG that I kept in my back pocket. You know, this is someone that we don't talk often. In high school, we didn't talk often, but when we reconnected, there was a connection, or at least I felt like there was a connection, and I held on to that. I cherish connections, and I cherish, you know, people who I've known for a really long time, and they're part of my origin story, my roots. So that's why I hold them to this. I value them a lot, and just to see just some Joe Schmoes be present in this little get together, and
I put my time in this.
I put the hours in. You didn't, you know. I was feeling a little down on it, and I had to come to the consensus that, you know, yes, I do value relationships more than others do. Like I do put out more love than I receive, and that's the end of it. That's something that I have to accept, you know. And I mean, your being increases the measure you give it away. So if I ever want to grow and, you know, become more self-aware, then that's something that I have to do. And you help me, you know, like I talked to you about it, and you helped me realize that. And I just want to know your take, if you've ever had like a situation like that, you know.
Yeah, I've had things like that. I have someone who's one of my best friends, and there was this time maybe almost 2 years ago where let's say I would make plans with this friend, right? And like, hey, we're gonna go get dinner tonight, right? And we're gonna watch that movie. And we're like, yeah, sure. And I'll get a phone call from them or a text later in the day said, hey, sorry, I'm not feeling well. I'm feeling a little under the weather. I'm going to go ahead and stay home and just relax. I'm like, sure, no problem, you know? And then later in the evening, I'll be looking at mutual friends, maybe social media, and I'll see they're not at home resting.
Where they at?
They're out engaging with people and socializing.
Oh.
And I'm like, you must have gotten better really fast. And this happened on multiple occasions. And I would kind of, you know, I would see them the next day or something. And I would just kind of frame it. By the way, how'd your night go? And they would say, great. I stayed home. I just rested. And I got some sleep. And just completely glossed over the fact that I could take my phone out and show you you're not at home.
Uh-huh.
I didn't confront the person for like 2 years, like a year later. Just because it was like, funny enough, I was listening to a podcast today, and by Father Mike Schmidt, and he was talking about, again, kind of on the topic of friendships, and, you know, let's say someone hurts you, and going back to the whole idea of free will, like, you have a choice to how you're going to respond to that and how you're going to engage it. Because let's say they hurt you, because they were talking about a fellow friend, like, oh, I can't believe John did this to me. Oh, I got to get him back. I got to do this. And he's like, well, hold on. Why is that your knee-jerk reaction? Why is it that? And I could have been the same way, and I could have looked at my friend and say, hey, I'm gonna say I'm gonna stay home, and I'll go hang out secretly without you and exclude you. Mm-hmm. But the thing Father Mike was saying was that you have to kind of stop, and you have to put a framing to it. I'm like, okay, who is this person to you? Yes, they may have hurt you, but at the core of it, are they trying to be a good and virtuous person? Is this sort of just a lapse? How everyone does in our own humanities and things like that. And that's the kind of thing that I had to kind of get into my head. It's like, you're inherently not trying to hurt me or do anything with like a malice intent. It's not nice what you're doing. but I know at your core you're not like a bad person. And he said, and I agree with this too, that's not an excuse to dismiss bad behavior, like genuine bad behavior. If someone, if you're in an abusive relationship or something of that nature, or someone's just generally negative and puts you down, you can't just always say, well, they're a good person at heart. It's like, we do have to recognize behaviors like that and take those into account. But, when you have moments of, here was a mistake this person made, they're going through something and there's obviously more reasons behind it. Instead of our first instinct to like go and retaliate and, well, I should do this and I can't wait to see what happens here. Mm-hmm. We have to stop and frame like, okay, who are they to me? What is our dynamic like? And, are they really a good person? And if they are, it's like, no, I'll stop. Yes, we should address what happened, because you should, if it hurt you and you feel, neglected or something, like, yeah, bring it up, of course, and talk it out. But we shouldn't be like, tit for tat and all these things and just want to quickly, like, I'll get back at you. And I think there's, to get back to your scenario, I think it's always hard to let someone down. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why sometimes, we have people, lie or give these half truths, because it's like, oh, hey, I totally forgot to invite you. Mm-hmm. I'll say it was, oh, hey, my mom was in charge of the guest list. I'm sorry about that. Or say something. Mm-hmm.
Whereas, and lying is going to make you weak. And telling the truth is what's going to strengthen you, Mm-hmm. But go on.
Yeah, because the truth hurts. It does. And I think in genuine friendships and in any types of relationships, sometimes you do have to say the harsh thing. That's no excuse to go and be belligerent and just run off and say a bunch of mean things. But I'm talking when you need to sit down and really be honest and reflect and say, hey.
But going back to friendships. Mm-hmm. That's a trigger word for me. Mm-hmm. Just because when I was little, mm-hmm. had my fair share of cat fights at the elementary schoolyard. This girl one time stole my crowns.
What?
Mm-hmm. This was I was in first grade. Mm-hmm. My mom had gotten me these princess crayons. And fun fact, her grandma was my kinder teacher. Mm-hmm. And this girl didn't have a mom. Her mom was in jail. I don't know how in first grade did we know this, but we just knew that she was in jail. And I came back from recess and my princess crowns were just gone. And I let my teacher know, and she basically, I think, looked through every desk and found them, and it's like, oh, they were in so and so's desks. Can you explain that? And I think her grandma had a talk with her, and obviously, as long as I got my crowns back, I'm okay with it, Mm-hmm. But yeah, that did happen. True story. So forgiveness is important, guys.
Forgiveness is very important, and that's such a true thing. Because people will make us mad. They'll steal our crayons. They'll say some hurtful things when they're going through some phases in life. But I think you've got to be able to forgive. And a part of that really is letting go. Because let's say your friend, oh, your friend ditched you to go to that big birthday party that you weren't invited to. And they said, oh, I won't go. But they wanted to go anyways. You can forgive them, make amends, but the part of it is like you can't bring it up anymore. And what I mean by that is like, if every time they make you mad, remember that time you left me to go to the birthday party? Well, at that point, what you're doing is you're living in the past. And there's this really great quote from this good book that I highly recommend everyone read, called How to Be Holy by Peter Kreeft, if I'm saying his name right. The quote goes, only the present moment can make us holy. The past cannot, because it is dead, and the future cannot, because it is not born yet. So what it's saying is like we exist right now. Yes, someone may have hurt you and they didn't invite you to the birthday party and they ditched you to go anyways. But okay, that happened a year ago. You're here and now. What are you going to do to this friendship now? You can't dwell on it anymore at that point. It doesn't do you any good. Or you can't be thinking about, oh, when the next birthday party comes along, I'm going to make sure you're not invited. I'm going to go there. It's like, well, that hasn't happened yet. You're missing, when you're so hyper-focused on what you're going to do to spite someone so far ahead or something, it's like you're missing on what's happening right now. And that's like the big thing, is right now. How are you going to be a friend to someone in this moment?
Right. We were saying kind of like our ambitions blind us in a way, and you know, we tend not to see what's right in front of us. Jordan Peterson, he was talking about this psychology video, or kind of an experiment that these group of scientists were doing, and basically they had people sit down and watch a video on display, and they told them, count how many times back and forth this ball gets distributed between these two people in the video. So yeah, it's like two random people on the field, in the soccer field, and they're throwing a ball back and forth between each other. And this person in the outside, you know, that they're telling, hey, watch this video, they're counting, you know, okay, 3, 4, 5, you know, back and forth the times that this person is these two people are throwing the ball back and forth. And then after they're done, they're like, all right, the ball got exchanged 14 times. And, you know, the leader of the experiment's like, all right, now did you see that gorilla just go across the field? And they're just like, what gorilla? What do you mean? You know, I didn't see this gorilla going across the field. And they're like, yeah, that gorilla, there was a gorilla in the video. And, you know, sure thing, you do the playback and there's a gorilla midfield, you know, pounding on its chest. And they totally, you know, they didn't catch it. They basically went above their heads and they didn't catch it. And that's, I think that has to do a lot with like what we want to see and what we want to perceive in things, you know. We want to kind of put our own agenda to things, in a sense, you know. We kind of only want to see what we want to see, and we don't quite see the bigger picture going, you know, behind the scenes. And I mean, it's a whole nother thing, you know. Not being invited to the birthday party, it's also, well, I think it's hard to bring things up to friends or to, you know, people close to you, even siblings, you know, relationships with siblings. But yeah, like we definitely do have our own, we sometimes do have our own agenda that we want to push out, or our own perceptions of things that kind of blind us to seeing the bigger picture in the end. And I think it's like, what's going to allow us to see that bigger picture? What do you think it's going to take for us to see the bigger picture in things?
I think it's not being so quick to like jump to conclusions. I also think it's really stepping outside of ourselves, because it's so true what you said, where people want to see what they want to see, and they want to maybe conform things. So it's like, no, this is how it happened. This is how I saw it. Or like, no, you don't understand. This is it. This is how it happened to me. This is how it hurt me, or something, or whatever. But sometimes we're just so caught up in like this one facet of the scenario that we're like, well, there were all these other people around. There's this whole big picture, the context that we're in. It's like, it's slightly almost of sort of stepping outside of your feelings for a second. Like, and this reminds me of a really great quote too. Again, from the book, How to Be Holy. And what it says is, feelings are like waves. They're really fun to play in, and they hurt when they crash on you, but you can't build on them anything solid. Mm-hmm. And it's faith. It's knowing that stabilizes you. And so it's like, again, we're going to have a knee-jerk reaction to things, but I got to take a step back. I got to take a pause and let me take in what is happening around me, what people are saying, and let me listen. Because I think so much, everyone wants to talk, everyone wants to say a ton of things, but not many people are willing to just listen. And I think that's a big part of it, is to be able to take in the big picture. We have to listen and really hear something out and be like, okay, you're feeling this, or you went through this.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point that you bring up. Having a solid foundation to build things off of. Not just some emotion or some reaction. And it's really hard not to react. I tend to kind of see myself as a kettle. Hold things in, and then until one day where I'm just flipping everyone off and cussing every other word and every sentence, but yeah, it's really hard not to react to things, especially if you already hold that insecurity within yourself, like you mentioned that good quote by Gwyneth Paltrow, if you want to.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so there's a really great quote, like Lucid said, it's this Gwyneth Paltrow, if you don't know, she's an actress, whatever, but she basically said, like a comment or a situation or something someone says only really hurts when it's already a criticism that you're holding against yourself.
Right. So if you already hold that criticism where it's like, no, people already call me, the uptight one, the strict one, the one that, the Karen, you tend to kind of refrain from acting that way, or you kind of tend to hold yourself back because you're like, no, they already think this of me, so I'm not going to play into that. And I think it's tough because you're holding yourself back and you're not being yourself. You're not being comfortable in that setting, and it could be self-destructive too, because you're holding back and you're internalizing a lot of the things, or you're allowing them to project in ways that you wouldn't normally have them be projected. It reminds me of Jordan B. Peterson talking about these Auschwitz survivors from the Holocaust, how basically like Jews would turn against each other in the concentration camps and stuff. It would be that harsh, where think about it, their freedom, everything was stripped away from them, and if they were fighting remotely for a scrap of bread or any scraps that the Nazis would give them, or if a Jew inside the cell made them mad, they turn against each other because that's the only that's the only freedom, that only choice that they had within themselves to kind of choose their attitude in that, and they would take it out on each other. And that's where I get at, that's the self-destructive part, where it's like, it's not, you're being destructive and not constructive and building off of that. But yeah, which goes along with the lines of forgiveness, you know, and kind of once you recognize, hey, I'm doing this, I did go way too far, I did react this way with you, and it's having that accountability and owning up to it, and recognizing I did do something that hurt you, forgive me, you know, having that humility to ask for forgiveness, and be the one to ultimately stick out that hand and say, hey, I'm sorry, forgive me. And I've had my fair share of, you know, I have to eat my words and be like, I was wrong in this situation. And is it hard? Yes, but you're gonna look stupider if you don't. Are you gonna be riding this lie? How long are you gonna be riding this lie? You know, how long are you gonna be riding this lie that you're wrong? And yeah, it's just, and it's hard to admit that you're wrong. I mean, no one wants to admit that they're wrong, but I mean, if it's just gonna cause more havoc in the world, it's gonna cause you to turn on people, then no.
No, I think that's really something great to think on, and it's so true about the idea of like forgiveness. It's like being able to, hey, I'm going to extend myself and say, let me own up to my mistake. Let me say I was wrong, or I was, you know, out of hand in this scenario. I'm gonna be accountable for this moment and say I'm sorry, and can you forgive me? But it's also on the other end to be receptive too. Like, we have to be able to forgive someone too. And you kind of think about in the way of, you know, like confession and something. Like, you go in there and you're saying, here's everything that I've done to hurt myself and to hurt others. And, you know, you get forgiven by God. You step in there and you do your part, and he does his. He's receptive to it, and he's like, well, I'm going to forgive you. You know, and you'll so often, you unfortunately have moments where like a friend will be, hey, I'm sorry, let me own up to what I've done wrong. And it's like, well, I don't forgive you. And then both people are left wounded. If the apology is coming from a really genuine place, and you see that they're making an effort, then, you know, hopefully you can extend that same effort too. And like, I'm going to try to make this work, and let's try to approach it in a new direction. Whether it's friendships or, you know, romantic relationships, we have to be able to like hold out for each other and like, okay, here's our rough patch, let's support each other. And the other thing too is like, when you go to someone and say, hey, I'm sorry for, you know, not inviting you to the birthday party and then I went by myself, you also have to like act on that too. You know, you have to, yes, you can make a great apology, and if they forgive you, that's awesome, but you have to also action that too. It's like, okay, I'm going to communicate better to you more and say, hey, there's this event going on, would you like to go or not go? Or like, if you were saying, like, if you're always late, you know, it's like, I'm sorry for always being late, then you should try to work on that. Like, hey, wake up a little bit earlier and make it on time or something. You have to put in the work to validate the word you're saying. Because if you just keep saying, I'm sorry, you know, it doesn't mean anything at that point.
I had, there's, someone in our family, well, not family, but, you know, in our circle, who was a priest,
They're working on finding God.
They're working on finding God, this person. And they would sit in for confessions, and one day I got to asking, hey, what's the type of people that you get? Have you ever had someone who just hasn't they're in the confessional and they're saying I did yada 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 wrong, this, that, and the third wrong, and but then they can't take accountability for it still. They're them being in the confessional and everything, they're like they say it, but they're just like, but this happened and I was this happened in my day and it was just this, and they kind of excuse it or justify it in their explanation and stuff. And he's like, oh yeah, absolutely, you know, this, I've heard it tons. And he's like, you know who I hear from? I'm like, who? And he's like, it be them viejitas, then them little Mexican moms and grandmas. It's like, I do this and this, but let me tell you about my husband. He's a drinker, he's an alcoholic, he does this or my daughter-in-law, let me tell you, she's a bit you know, and he's telling me, you know, like, yes, I see tons of that, and it's like, okay, wait, backtrack, you know. I'm like, so, you know, I asked him, you know, naturally, well, what do you do in that instance? And he's like, I kind of slowed it down. I'm like, wait, backtrack, would you say that one more time? You stole money from collection, back up to that sin, all right, you know. And he's just he basically gets them to backtrack, like, okay, I understand you're saying this, but I want to hear what you did, not what X, Y, and Z did. I want to hear what you did. And it's kind of like, no, let's backtrack and get back to who we're really talking about, who we're really here to help out, which is yourself, if you're going in for confession. And it was just interesting to hear, because I, you know, no other priest has ever been so transparent about that and honest about it. But yeah, he was very, very open and very receptive to all of our questions, and it just goes to show that even priests at the confessional noticed this, you know, going on. Like, accountability is a big issue in terms of self-awareness and learning about yourself, because I think we go through a lot of things in life where you don't understand, you suffer, you have pain, and you don't see the end point of it all, and you're kind of lost, and you're just like, well, what's the point of this? This is just miserable, you know. But then it's like, well, no, let's analyze the situation you learned. What did you gain from it? That's what you have to ask yourself, you know. What did you gain from it? There's meaning in suffering, so what did you gain from that? And then you start thinking, well, you know, I could be nicer. I could treat people a little bit with more respect, or I can learn from a 2-year-old. I can just, you know, kind of be self-aware and know that I'm flawed in the end. I myself am flawed, and I recognize that I am. So, Xavier, when you have a friend who asks a favor from you, what's your take on that? How do you?
When someone asks a favor from me, I mean, if it's coming from a friend, I want to, you know, obviously try the best of my ability to, like, hey, I want to go out of my way to help you for what you're asking. You know, if it's like, hey, can you help me with this project for my class I'm working on, or hey, can I you know, can you help me, like, edit, you know, my video I'm doing for something, or like whatever it is. It's like I want to try to help them, because, like, I care about them, and yeah, I would like to go out of my way for them, if I can.
Mr. Mike, shout out to Mr. Mike. He's always said, and it's funny, he's always used a chord like this, but he basically says, you know, we
I'm Mr. Mike too.
Catholic, yeah, Nesio. Catholic Apostolic Church, our faith believes that, eternal life. And basically our life here on earth is about this little nib right here. This is infinity, guys. So this little nib here is like our life here on earth. And it's like, are you really going to be causing problems or kind of like causing... Yeah, like hung up on $5 that you owe someone, or what someone said about you, what someone did to you, or said about you potentially. Are you really gonna be worried about that? I mean, you have like you kind of reminiscing on this part of life, like that's just gonna it can make you miserable in the end. So just like you say, move forward and keep going and just move on. And like a frog doesn't go backwards, just keep forward.
They don't go backwards. They can't. My mind's been blown.
Your mind's been blown. What do you think about people hiding things from you?
I guess this goes back to the earlier thing about like, when your friends hanging out without you, it's like, I don't really care that much at the end of the day. It's like, you can either tell me, that's fine, that's great, I'd appreciate it, but at the same time, it's like, I can't go crazy over you not telling me this thing or something. It's like, either you do or you don't. I appreciate if you did. If you don't, okay, I know what that says about you and your character, and what ultimately what you're trying to give off. I'm like, I can't fight that. I'm gonna go crazy trying to figure out this one thing you said 6 months ago. Like, I don't care that much. I really have other things in my agenda. If we're cool, we're cool. If not, then I can't fight you, man. It's like, I'll try to make it work with you as best I can. If not, okay. I'll be over here doing my thing. Because like, at the end of the day, it's like, I try to think about like this. It's like, I know as much as it's bugging me, like, what did you say? What did you do? What are you thinking? Like, I know you're at home not doing that. And so, like, why am I at home going crazy over this thing and thinking this, Because you're not giving me that time of day. It's like, why am I going to give that to you? Why am I going to validate you driving me crazy, Because you don't deserve it. I don't deserve it. I should be focusing on the things I want to do. Not because someone is trying to be sneaky or shady or kind of hiding or whatever. I'm like, do you want to work it out? Do you want to talk? We can do that. If not, okay, that's fine. I'd rather someone just say, I don't want to be friends with you, than kind of half-heartedly just kind of let something die,
Yeah.
Like, it's like a breakup. You sometimes you have to break up with friends.
You do.
Like, think about if like you were dating a girl or something. It's like, you don't go up to your girlfriend and be like, some people do, and that's the problem. They just slowly kind of let it trickle to nothing, and they almost ghost them. It's like, no, be a man. Go up to her and say, I don't like you anymore. I don't want to see you. It's not going to work out, and that's it. That way she moves on clearly, you move on clearly. Yeah, it's not nice to say. Feelings are going to get hurt. Feelings are going to get hurt, sure, but at least you know where you stand and you said it. What are you so afraid of? To hurt someone, or to think that like, oh, you broke up with someone, oh, you're a jerk? No, you're human. That's what happens. You don't have to like everybody. You don't have to be friends with everybody. That's fine. But just own up to it,
It's hard to basically juggle all of that, but then I mean, if it's gonna make you miserable in the end, what's the point?
Exactly. Why are you going crazy over something you don't really want? Like, oh, I've got to make sure I have this job. Here's my house. Here's my perfect relationship. Here's my nice car. Here's my appearance to the public. If it's driving you crazy so much to meet all those things, like like what's it worth at that point then?
Mm-hmm.
I don't,
Or even having kind of obscure influences in your life too can definitely have an impact on how you view things, you know. I think we have enough, huh?
Yeah.
Should we close it off?
Yeah.
Bye.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to our little podcast.
Bye.
We'll see you guys real soon. We can use like 5 minutes.
We can.